How many years you vegan now?
40 years. I went into depression, deep depression, and attempted to take my life because I couldn't handle the depression anymore. My higher voice just said, stop harming other animals.
Why do people say a person can't be vegan and be muscular?
Marketing. The meat and dairy industry have tried to get people to eat more of their products. And I'm living proof that clearly you don't need meat to gain muscle. You don't have to be in a certain culture or a certain religion or a certain belief system. Anybody can change the way they eat or exercise. I can press more weight than I could in my 30s, in my 60s. Nature's got a lot of the answers, and we're just now figuring out some of them.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Here I am today with my guest, Jeff Palmer. Jeff, thank you for coming on the podcast here.
It's great to finally meet you in person.
As you too as well. And so right away, everybody, I've had Jeff on before, and he is, how many years you vegan now?
40 years.
40 years vegan. So tell everybody what got, I'll put the link to the previous episode, but tell everybody briefly, like introduce yourself, and then we'll get into some questions.
Okay, yeah. I went through a really rough period in my life in my early 20s where I lost my mother and my father. It took a toll on me emotionally, and I went into depression, deep depression, and attempted to take my life because I couldn't handle the depression anymore. And fortunately, I met someone who helped me through the pain, and I had such an intense breakthrough that night I quit doing drugs, I quit smoking, I quit drinking, and I quit eating all animal products. And that was 40 years ago, and enjoyed a clean life ever since. It was life-changing for me personally, as I knew my life was like almost a start over, just like in playing video games, as I love doing. Sometimes you get an extra life. I felt like I was gifted that, and I said, I'm not going to waste this life this time, and I'm going to dedicate it to doing my best to helping others through health, nutrition, fitness, and positivity.
Well, we know that smoking and drinking and doing drugs is not healthy for us. Yeah. Some people, unfortunately, get addicted and they have trouble stopping. But where do you throw in there eating animals? Because that's not normal to hear people say, well, I got off drugs and drinking and all this and stopped eating animals. So how'd that click in your mind that that's part of one of the things that were making you depressed?
Yeah, I was the mental anguish, the emotional anguish was so intense. It was like being in a black hole. I couldn't figure out how to get out. It felt trapped, and it was painful. It was extraordinarily painful. It was uncomfortable. I was always a compassionate person, a nature lover. So I had that connection early in life. But as I got into adult life and work, nothing seemed to make sense to me. Like, people are so mean to each other. People are so unkind to each other. They're competitive and ego-driven. And I'm just like, is this world even right for me? This doesn't seem to be something that I could enjoy the rest of my life. So trying to come to grips with that, trying to understand where my process was, sent me in along with those negative things of losing my mother and father. Because my parents, my mother was a psychologist helping children have breakthroughs. My father was an existentialist and an intellectual. And I was like, okay, I was gifted a great mind, but why couldn't my mind figure out how the basics just to be happy? It was frustrating. But when I had that breakthrough, when somebody helped me see forgiveness for the first time in my life, and I had to forgive myself before I could forgive everything else around me. But when I did, I felt so released from my own pain. I said, oh my God, how do I pay this forward? So I just sat in silent prayer and meditation all night long. And as the sun was coming up, I saw it rising, and I felt a rising inside myself. And my higher voice just said, stop harming other animals. And I'm like, oh, oh my God, how come I never saw that before? Because I was so wrapped in my own pain, I wasn't seeing the pain around me. But now when I had turned to this sense of forgiveness and gratitude, I could see it all around me. Everything became clear. And then I said, oh my God, I don't want to participate in that. I don't want to harm anything. And it just made instant. It felt to me like a whole suit of me, identity, just fell to the earth like ashes.
Sure.
It was done. I was done.
Wow.
In that moment, I was like, never again.
Now, when some people become vegan, some people do it for health reasons first. Some people do it for ethical reasons. Other people do it for environmental reasons. Mm-hmm. Some people do it for all those reasons. But what would you identify as your driving force for being a vegan?
Suffering. Nothing on this planet likes to suffer. And if I don't have to contribute to that in my own life, why would I? I know what suffering felt like. Suffering almost caused me to take my own life, end it, because I couldn't stand the suffering. I know what suffering is. And I look at other peoples, disenfranchised peoples, and different animals that are suffering in horrific ways. And I will not participate in that.
Now, the vegan diet technically, or the vegan lifestyle, is not just about diet. It's just that, making sure no animals are suffering, and even animal testing. I mean, it can be taken to really long lengths. So how far do you take it? Is it just like, I'm not going to eat an animal, or are you like a big supporter of Peter? Like, how far do you take this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a very individualistic question. Each person has to come to their own conscience and find their own lines at which they do. I do as much as I possibly can, and I'm always open to pushing that boundary further. For me, there's suffering and then there's love, and that's the two ends of it, And it's not that's suffering and that's love. It's a gradient,
sure.
And I want to keep moving towards more loving, being a more loving, kind person, compassionate person in any way. So if I see something that I'm doing and say, hey, wait, I can do that better, then I'm going to do it. It's nearly impossible to be 100% free of that, but doing your best possible. That's what I try to do. And I try to keep looking for ways so that I can improve that. It's a constant.
I think we need to keep looking, because my struggle is, what if you see an insect in your house? What do? You try to shoo it out of the door, but eventually, if you see too many, do you call an exterminator? It's just this, how far do you take it, and just, I like the idea of continuously trying to find ways to make it better. So that's a good thing. Now, if I look at you from the way a vegan's supposed to look, now I know there are healthy vegans out there. I'm very much involved in fitness myself. You look like a bodybuilder. You don't look like the typical vegan. So how tall are you and how much do you weigh?
I'm 5'9" and roughly about 185.
Okay. And so why do people say a person can't be vegan and be muscular?
That's just false. There's no reason why not to. As a matter of fact, there's lots of reasons why it's easier to gain and maintain muscle on a vegan diet. Vegan diets are higher in plant foods, obviously, if you're eating a good, healthy, whole food, plant-based diet. And plant foods are generally more alkaline. An alkaline body actually heals and repairs faster. That's why a lot of sports athletes are now switching, like Tom Brady played, quarterback at Pro Bowl level all the way into his late.
But he wasn't a
40s.
vegan.
Not a vegan, but a vegetarian. But so dominantly plant-based. But they're finding, hey, wait, I can recover faster. I can stay in the game longer. My muscles last better. So there are definitely some advantages to a plant-based diet as far as that's concerned.
I agree with you. The question is, why do people think it can't be done?
And I'll say this in the simplest terms possible: marketing. The meat and dairy industry have tried to get people to eat more of their products. That's typical. That's advertising and marketing 101. Every industry does it, right? They want you to use more of their products because they make more money that way. So they have controlled the narrative for so long. Oh, you need to eat more of this because of this. You need to eat more of this because of this. And no one's really questioned that as being a marketing or sales tool. Now, if somebody is trying to sell you sneakers, you're going to say, oh, that's marketing, you know? If somebody's selling you a supplement, you can say, oh, that's marketing. But why is nobody questioning when they're selling you meat and telling you to eat meat?
Exactly.
Why is nobody saying, oh, that's marketing? Because that's exactly what it is. And I'm living proof that clearly you don't need meat to gain muscle. That's marketing. That's the difference between marketing and science. So that's what I usually talk about is the scientific research. I'm trying to cut through the marketing part and say, what is the real science? What is our physiology actually showing us and telling us?
So before you went on a vegan diet, were you pretty much into working out and muscular as well?
So I started in my high school and college days. I was a swimmer. I was going on into college and swimming, but swimming burns a lot of calories, so you have to eat constantly. It got a little wearing for me, that and being in a pool full of chlorine, not really the healthiest thing in the world. So taking a chemical bath every day and watching my hair fall out, it's like, okay, what am I getting out of this? But I did start working out when I started swimming to help with my performance with my swimming. And I'm like, well, I like this better, and I don't have to get in the gym, and I don't have to eat so freaking much. I was eating 5,000 calories a day. Right now, I eat probably about 2,800 calories, or almost half as much as a swimmer, and I still had like under 10% body fat.
So how tall did you say you were?
5'9".
So at 5'9", you're maintaining, how much did you weigh?
185.
185 by eating 2,800 calories a day. You're maintaining this weight. You've been doing this for quite a while?
Yeah, probably 30 years.
Okay. So have you went back and forth over the years trying different ways to eat, or you pretty much always ate similar?
No, I went completely raw for a couple of years. I was even fruitarian for about a year and a half. And I enjoyed all of the different diets. The level of, I'm what they call a hypersensitive personality. I feel everything very easily, which is great when things are subtle. I can pick up subtleties very easy. I can pick up cues visually, auditorily, sensorily, emotionally. All great. But when the volume is anger and heightened stress, and your sensitivity is at a high 10, it starts to become uncomfortable. And initially, when I went raw and fruitarian, I was so sensitive. I didn't want to be around people because I could feel their stress and their anxiety and their depression. They didn't know they were. I could feel it, though. And it was just difficult for me to be around. But I was like, well, I can't help anybody if I can't be around people, you know? And I said, okay, well, maybe I should just incorporate some grounding food, some cooked food, some stuff that calms and centers me a little heavier. It's like adding a little extra weight. Like if you're too light, you float away. But adding a little extra weight can help in that situation. So I was using food actually to desensitize me slightly so that it wouldn't be so oversensitive to other people's experiences.
But when you were doing that, eating raw and fruitarian, did you have any trouble putting on calories and maintaining the weight, or was it just a sensitivity issue, or was that something that was a challenge?
No, I did. I dropped down to about 145 pounds, so about a 40-pound difference.
40-pound difference. Yeah. Were you able to maintain the muscle?
Not as much, but that wasn't my goal either at the time. I wasn't working out as intensely. It was not my goal. My goal, I was doing more things like yoga and meditation, which don't engage the muscle as much. So it was a different focus, a different outcome, obviously. I have never tried to do what I do now, which is try to have an athletic build on a completely raw food. But I know there are raw food folks that do bodybuilding as well.
Sure. Do you think the high sensitivity of eating such a high vibrational foods has something to do with you at this time choosing less physical, I guess, less different types of exercising, like more like yoga and things like that? Yes. It's in terms of when you started to eat heavier foods to desensitize yourself, that put you in the gym working out with weights and stuff. Do you think the diet had something to do with your choices of the way you were working out?
Oh, 100%. And for my goals. So I went to a veg fest and someone came, and I was working out more seriously at this time. And someone came up and said, "Oh my God, you mind if I take a picture of you?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "My boyfriend doesn't believe you can build muscle on I had a vegan shirt on. And so I was like, okay, well, here's an opportunity to help bridge some of the stigma, because right now, veganism is about 80% female in the United States. There's a lot of males that are just avoiding it like the plague. And it's because of a misunderstanding, because they don't believe, because they're holding on to fear that somehow I'm going to become, small or, unmasculine by any ways. So I said, all right, here's an opportunity for me to help my gender try to bridge that gap, to see, hey, wait a minute, if he can do it, what am I afraid of,
Sure.
And I wanted to help that, because here I am, a male that is succeeding in this. And back when I was doing the raw food, my focus was more on healing myself, being my best self. But in that, I became more and more isolatory. It was gentler and easier just to be by myself in meditation. Now, that's my bliss, but I felt selfish. I felt, Jeff, you have learned so many things from your experiences. I traveled all over the world, 48 different countries. I learned from cultures and peoples and different styles of eating. And I said, you've gained so much knowledge that could be really helpful to other people, and you're just sitting on it by yourself. That's selfish. You were born male. You were born with high IQ parents. You were born white and in the United States. All of those are advantages by birth. I didn't do anything to earn those advantages. So I felt even more obliged to try to pay that forward, There are other people that don't have those advantages, and I'm sitting on them all by myself. That seems selfish to me. So I felt compelled to go out there and say, okay, what do I need to get back into society and to help as many people I can because of my position, because of what I've learned.
Sure. Now, eating the way you were eating raw food, fruitarian, with your exercise program now, it can be accomplished for you to,
Sure.
It's just about calories and nutrients, where they're coming from. But
Totally.
What stops you from trying to do something like that? Or is it something you think maybe?
So when I traveled with Buddhist monks and doing chanting, and I worked with Native American shamans up in the north, and I was doing a sweat lodge, and I had this tremendous experience. And I was like, okay, what's the catalyst here? And so many religions and cultures have these transformational practices. Fasting is one, obviously. But almost every religion and culture has these ways of triggering transformational experiences. And I said, okay, so what did they do? They took heat, and they took a sense of prayer and community and get around the heat and allow the heat to cause a release of sweat, release of energy. And then the emotions start to release, and then the mind starts to release. And you get this just outpouring. But you take one aspect, the physical aspect, and cause it to shift. And then the emotional part of yourself wants to shift, and the psychological part, and the spiritual and the energetic part wants to shift as well, because we're a whole being, we're not parts. And I'm like, okay, well, if we can use diet or exercise that way, Can we get people to exercise their way to an inner shift? Can we get people to change their diet and let them feel and experience that inner shift as well? So for me, it's as much as about trying to help people utilize something that they're okay with. Everybody eats every day. Everybody does some movement. Why not just teach them how to do movement in a way that can cause or stir an internal shift? And make them say, wow, that felt good. I want more of that. How do I go to ask that question? What's the next step? How can I get more of that positive experience of feeling healthy through nutrition or through exercise? I thought those are two easy ways that anybody, you don't have to be in a certain culture or a certain religion or a certain belief system. Anybody can change the way they eat or exercise.
Sure. So how many days are you actually going to the gym?
I work out as many days as my body says is okay.
So you don't have a set schedule? You just wake up and see how you feel?
I feel back. It's biofeedback always.
Okay.
If I'm not feeling it, I give my body rest. If I'm feeling great and I want to push,
on average, how many days a week do you go?
Probably 5 to 6 days a week.
5 to 6 days.
I always try to give myself at least 1 day a week.
And how much time do you spend when you go? Again, you go by just feeling? Do you don't have anything written down, or do you just go there and say, I'm going to do whatever I feel like doing today?
Well, in nature, would we have a routine? Maybe. But chances are we'd flow with whatever. Is it rainy today? Okay, I'm not going to do a whole lot of work outside, you know?
Sure.
And I think if we just follow our own inner voice and flow with that, our body will tell us exactly where it wants to go.
How much grams of protein would you say you get on the average day?
And again, I listen to my body. If I work out and the next day I feel really sore, okay, I probably haven't consumed enough protein to be able to repair. If I work out the next day and I still feel strong, okay, I'm probably in a sweet spot. So I keep that feedback. I want people to get out of this intellectual, this amount of protein equals this amount of result. No, your body is talking to you constantly. It's sending you messages all the time. Listen to it. And if we could just tune in and start listening to our body's going to tell us exactly what it needs and when and where and how much.
How many grams of protein do you eat on an average day, would you say?
On average, anywhere between, at the low end, maybe 50 or 60 grams. Look, it's almost hard for me to get less than 60 grams. That's only 20 grams a meal, and that's not including any other shake or snack or anything like that. So just a simple sandwich or, a smoothie can have 20 grams of protein, and it's not that hard. So anywhere from 60 to upwards of 100 or so.
How many times do you eat a day?
Again, I listen to my body.
On average?
On average, 4 times a day, probably.
4 times a day.
Yeah, but smaller meals, and I only eat till I'm full. If there's still food on my plate, I don't eat it. I save it.
Sure. What time do you usually go to sleep at night?
Depends, but usually close to midnight.
Okay. Again, are you listening to your body, or
Yes.
do you tell yourself, I got to be in bed by midnight, or do you just...
No. If I'm tired at 10, I go to bed at 10.
Okay, so how many hours do you usually get sleep?
Almost always 8, and I don't even have to plan it. Fortunately, I own my own company, so I don't have to wake up to an alarm clock.
Okay.
I get up when my body is rested.
Okay. And so what could your advice to people like that, specifically men that are scared of going vegan because they're going to lose too much weight, or they're not going to be able to think they can't grow muscle? What would you tell them?
Okay, so when you change and you clean up your diet, your body says, all right, we've got better building materials. What do you do with better building materials? You tear down the old stuff and rebuild it with the new stuff. So every time your body gets a better building material, better diet, it's going to say, let's tear down these inferior cells, remove them. So you're going to drop some weight initially as your body is going through what's called autophagy, self-eating. It's pulling out the bad cells. And then your body will rebuild. But when you rebuild, you're going to rebuild mitochondria, which is all your energy source. You're going to rebuild and strengthen those cells, so you'll gain strength, you'll gain more energy, you'll have more clarity, your cells will function better, so everything will be positively affected.
So your strength actually, have you seen a decline in your strength from before you went vegan to now, and also from raw food to now? Like, is it go by your weight? Does it go by your strength? Can you lift as much as you used to? Do you see as you're getting older? Do you think it's because you're getting older, or are you getting stronger? What do you think?
I can press more weight than I could in my 30s, in my 60s. So I can press 450 pounds at 62 years of age. Now, a lot of people won't believe that, but I have videos of it, so you can see me actually pushing 450
When you
pounds.
exercise on the average trip to the gym, are you always trying to exhaust the muscle and try to max out, or do you just do that once in a while to see where you're at?
I just do that every once in a while to see where my strength is at, but I always do so with proper warm-up, exercise the muscle, make sure the tendon can bear the weight. I go up gradually to see if there's any weakness in the muscle. If I feel the slightest twinge, I won't go any further than that. I'm not interested in hurting my body, but I am interested to know where some upper limits are, and it feels good to feel powerful.
Absolutely, absolutely. From a powerful standpoint, what's something that I don't want to say the word struggle, but what's something you haven't achieved yet but you want to? Maybe an 8-pack, maybe stronger legs. What's your personal challenge or goal that you haven't achieved yet?
I would like to try some different types of things. Like, I'm getting a little into more calisthenics, which is like using the bars instead of using weights, which is more body weight. I'm doing like windshield wipers. I don't know if you know what that is, but you pull your legs all the way up into the up position and then turn them from side to side. So it looks like a windshield wiper. It takes a lot of core strength to do that, and it takes a lot of practice to build up. But it's fun once you get there because everybody in the gym's looking at you like, how do you do that?
Yeah. So have you been able to do those?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and quite well. And now I can do planks, I can do walk-ups, I can do a lot of
Have you been able
things.
to do the skin the cat? Have you heard
all
of that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Muscle ups, yeah. And
you can do muscle ups.
Yeah, and at 62, look, it's a little harder for me to do a muscle up than somebody who's lighter. So many of the calisthenics people are a lighter frame. It's a lot easier to move less weight. Moving near 190 pounds is a lot harder to move to a muscle up position.
So I have a pull-up bar that I use every morning, and muscle up is my goal. And is it technique or is it actual?
Both.
Both. Okay.
But more so, it is practice. So it's form first. If you don't have the proper form, it's going to be really difficult. But it also takes strengthening those particular muscles that do that motion. And it won't come at first. Well, I take that back. There are some people with light frames, like a 140-pound male at my height, can do it possibly just on that because it's less weight to move.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. So I know besides diet, you take some supplements.
I do.
And I know you actually have a company that makes some supplements. So can you talk about what you take and with the criticism of somebody who's not a vegan saying, well, the diet's lacking because you need supplements?
So the word supplement means to supplement your diet. It's not in place of your diet. It's not a substitute for diet. Your nutrition and your nutrition foundation should always come from whole plant foods, period. Nutrition can be augmented or supplemented to give you optimal amounts to help you achieve things that you wouldn't without that extra nutrition. So in the science field, we say there's insufficiency. Well, there's first deficiency, like if you're deficient in vitamin D3. Then there's insufficiency, which means you're not getting enough to maintain, but it's not critical yet. There's sufficiency, and there's optimal levels. So most of our research in health is based on deficiency, insufficiency, or sufficiency, not optimal. We're never even asking what is optimal. Okay, that will get you to survival. That will prevent rickets. That will prevent a disease. But what is optimal? We're not even asking that question in science health communities. I want to find that out. is there better performance? Is there a better experience when we supplement or add additional nutrition? And my experience is profoundly yes. And it's not for everyone. If you're fine at reaching just efficient, great. You're surviving. You make it all the way to the end, just healthy as you can. But if you want to see what life has to offer on the upper end, well, it requires upper end nutrition.
Sure. And all your supplements are vegan-based, vegan, completely vegan.
Completely vegan, natural, non-GMO, gluten-free. We try to make them accessible to anybody who wants to use them. I do not say anybody needs a supplement, other than a couple which I think are important, and that's vitamin B12, clearly, if you're not getting it in your diet. Now, to your point before, people say, oh, wait a minute, vegans have to supplement B12. But on the same way we say everyone should supplement vitamin D3, if you're not getting direct exposure to the sun, which we can make our own D3, then you should be doing it because you're removing yourself from nature. Well, we've done that to the soil. So in farming practices, we monocrop. It's the same crop grown in the soil, and it depletes the soil of its nutrients, but we also spray it, which kills all the fungal community and the bacterial community. So when we looked at plants in nature, we found, oh wait, these plants actually have B12 in them. They're absorbing it from the soil, the B12 producing microbes in the soil. But you don't find that in our food supply. So the assumption of looking at our food is, oh, plants don't have B12. No, it's because you're growing them dead, depleted soil. There's no microbiome, there's no B12 producing microbes in the soil, so the plants can't get any. But it's because we've done that to the soil. Not because if you were foraging in wild in nature, you would be getting, obviously eating enough, you would be getting enough vitamin B12 from the plants alone. It's just that we've removed that from our things. So we're making assumptions that it's not there in the plants when it really is. And we even know this. We've tested it on soy and lettuce. You can add just B12 to the soil and they'll have more in the plants. So we just need to put back what we've taken out. Just like if you take yourself out of direct sunlight, you got to put that nutrient back.
Sure. So 3 supplements. So B12, what do you do for B12?
B12, I take a standard vitamin B12 supplement.
Like a sublingual or something?
I use it in a multi, just to cover bases.
And is that your product or just one?
Not yet. Okay. I am working on a whole food multivitamin that will have B12 in it. So everything will be in its whole food state. I want to get back to whole foods as much as possible.
Okay, so B12. Then the other question is protein.
Yes.
There are so many protein powders there, and most vegan ones are pea protein.
Correct.
Do you do one that's pea protein or something different?
We are doing something very different. In September, we will be launching the very first whole food protein powder from mycelium. So mycelium is the underground network that mushrooms grow from. But actually, only about 1% of mycelium actually grow mushrooms. So mushrooms are just the part that humans have been familiar with because we pick them and eat them, the ones that are non-toxic. But there are 5 million species of fungi that are yeasts and molds and lots of other mycelium species that can produce protein. The particular mycelium that we're working with is 52% protein in its whole food state. So you don't even need to isolate it like pea or rice or
So it has all the essential amino acids in there.
All the essential amino acids, complete protein, perfectly digestible, 1.0 PDCAS, so you're getting all of the nutrients.
Will it be processed and cooked or raw?
No, it is heat treated because it is a mycelium. You have a kill step, right, which is to kill the mycelium so that it's consumable. But it's not raw, but it's completely whole food. So all the fiber, all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the micronutrients, including a polyamine called spermidine. Have you heard of spermidine?
No.
Spermidine is now being touted as the most anti-aging nutrient ever discovered. it is made by our bodies in small amounts, and it's actually made a little bit by our microbiome. But as we age, it declines, and we can get it from food. Now, some foods do have spermidine in it, but this mycelium has the richest source of spermidine of anything we've ever discovered so far. It's about 7 times more than the average person would eat in a day. A good thing about spermidine is our body can change it back and forth or degrade it down, so getting too much of it.
So since it's so much in there, will we just need to take less of it to get the same amount of protein?
Not the protein. So there's 2 different things going on here. There's the polyamines, which is an amino acid group and has anti-aging. It stimulates autophagy. So when you build muscle, that's good, but some of it breaks down. Some of it gets damaged. Some of it is just poorly made and needs to be gotten out. That process is called autophagy. Autophagy is breaking down or getting rid of bad proteins, and that is what causes the aging process. When these proteins, bad proteins, are not broken down, when you don't take out the garbage in your body, the garbage builds up and causes everything else to work worse. That's the aging process in a nutshell. So humans figured out a long time ago through agriculture, hey, we can create food all the time. In nature, every other species would eat and then fast, and then eat and then fast. You would build proteins and then tear down and break down and clear out the garbage. There would be a nice balance. Humans stopped doing that. That's why in some religions and cultures they have built in, hey, do fasting during this time.
Sure.
You gotta clean the house. This is a healthy thing. But we 24/7, every day of the week, 365. We're not allowing for autophagy. So finding a nutrient that stimulates autophagy without fasting, this is so needed in our modern culture right now.
What's your issue or concern with pea protein? Or is it just you wanted to just take it to the next level, or what is it?
Pea protein, rice protein, all the plant proteins pretty much are isolated. They've taken the peas and they stripped out the fiber, they stripped out a lot of the micronutrients, they stripped out a lot of the essential fats, and you're just left mostly with the protein. And I'm like, okay, that's okay for the protein, but let's get back to whole food.
Sure.
Let's get back to having all that nutrition. And so I was looking for something, even animal proteins, whey protein or egg proteins are usually stripped down. They're isolated, they're processed. I wanted to move away from that and get back to eating like we would in nature, but in a source that has benefits far beyond any plant or animal protein.
What's your opinions from a protein standpoint of having raw sprouts and microgreens?
So sprouts tend to be high in spermidine, so that's a really good thing too as well. But I'm a big fan of sprouts. I would be doing it all the time if I wasn't in the middle of a move right now.
Sure.
and plan to incorporate more sprouts.
I do sprouts and microgreens every day. Do you think wanting to take things to the next level, somebody who is like me, and there aren't many people that eat like I do, can benefit from having more? And is there a point where you can get too much where you got to slow down?
Yeah, so there is, I would suggest people gradually do that to allow both your microbiome to adjust. But also look at your current lifestyle. Are you under a stressful lifestyle because your workplace, you're going to be a little bit more toxic. These things are really helpful, but they're also very detoxifying. If you have a high toxin level, detoxifying rapidly and heavily would not be a pleasant experience for some people.
So for those people, you would say slow down.
Slow down. Add a little bit.
Sure.
Try to adjust your current life.
I guess my question is, if somebody,
diet.
Based on the amount they were doing, I know you're familiar with the Hippocrates diet, was eating a good amount of sprouts and microgreens.
Yes.
Do you think they can get enough to meet their protein standards to not just survive, but to optimal?
Yeah, I mean, not to compare to another species, but if you look at a gorilla, they do it. But here's the catch. Our digestive tract is designed to eat a little bit more condensed nutrients, where those are high in nutrients, low in calories. So we do have to find another source of calories to meet our day, since they're so high in nutrient density but low in caloric density. It just depends on your goals. If you don't mind being very svelte, very lean, very slight build, then great. That's actually proven to be the best for longevity anyway. But if your goal is to have an aesthetic appearance that is more muscular, more strength-born, because you just feel better that way, well, then there are other ways of doing it. And you would have to include, like when I was on a fruitarian diet, I dropped a lot of weight, and there was no two ways around it. It's lower calorie density. It is.
Sure.
I felt great, but I was very, very light.
I mean, but if you were exercising the right way, you could have probably, at least from the calisthenics standpoint,
correct,
reached the highest.
I would have to up my total intake of food. A good friend of mine's been, well, you know, Dr. Tim Trader. You had him on the show. Yeah. He eats. I've seen him put away a lot of food in a sitting. And the same with the gorillas. You see the distended abdomen on the gorillas, it's because they're eating close to 40 pounds of food a day. Now, humans don't, we eat about 2 to 3 pounds of food a day,
Sure.
or kilos a day. So it would be a little uncomfortable to have that type of distended abdomen. It's not that you can't, it would take some adjustment, for sure.
Sure. Do you have a concern with vegan bodybuilders that are comparable to even non-vegan bodybuilders, just the excess? I mean, there's one thing being fit, but then there's the excess, and they're all dying later on in life. Or I don't know if you know the old guys like Ronnie Coleman and all those other old Mr. Universe bodybuilders that are getting sick and dying because of the abuse they put on their bodies. So do you have a concern with the vegan bodybuilders that, I mean, they're eating like a lot of protein powders and a lot of food just to go over and beyond being fit and strong? Do you see a concern from a health standpoint with that?
Yeah, there's no two ways around it, but I want to be clear. The Ronnie Coleman's and those bodybuilders are using a cocktail of drugs.
Sure.
Okay,
sure.
That's different than a natural bodybuilder is not using any drugs at all. I'm a natural bodybuilder. I have not used drugs.
Yeah, but these guys are taking, even the bodybuilders, they're taking the vegan protein powders, so they might be getting 300 grams of protein a day. Consistently.
I competed at 100 grams a day.
I know.
So, it's not necessary. Yes, they are doing that. And look, when you put stuff through your body, it requires energy. About 30% of your body's total energy.
Yeah? Hello? Oh, they might be here in the front. All right. Finish up the next thought and I'll just check on
Okay. So about 30% of our total body's energy is used in digestion alone. So if you're eating heavy and lots of protein, it's taking more of your body's energy to do that. So you're wearing down your body at that point. At that point, you're not giving your body energy. You're taking energy from the body at that point. So you have to understand that. But again, it depends on every person's goal. If you don't mind living to 60 to 70 and you want to look good in 60 to 70 years, okay, that's going to be your choice.
We don't have that much time, but I definitely would like to do a follow-up interview and tell everybody to go to the link below because we spoke about this in depth in a previous interview. It's the essential fatty acids. This is something that a lot of people that switch to a vegan diet will say, how do we get this, or where do we get it from? And at least the popular vegan source to get it is some algae oil. There are some people that say, I don't need to take any supplements because I eat flax seeds and hemp seeds, and I get it from there. You have a product for vegans if they want to supplement with this.
Yes.
So is it necessary if somebody's eating flax and hemp seeds to supplement with it? And why do you feel your product is superior to the algae?
Yes, great question. Okay, so a lot of this confusion started with early scientists identifying EPA and DHA as important. EPA important for heart and cardiovascular system, DHA a little bit more important for brain. Now, I think they came to a misconclusion or a misassumption when they saw the brain was loaded with DHA meant that we needed a lot of DHA. Which is not true, and we know that is not true now. It is a building block. It's like saying, oh, our body is loaded with calcium because we have bones, so we need to do, 2 pounds of calcium a day. No, that's not true either. We only need a little bit, only about 1,000 milligrams of calcium a day for our entire bone structure. So DHA makes the structure of the brain, but once it's built, we only require about 2.5 to 3.5 milligrams of DHA a day. That's it. So why are people taking 250, 500, 1,000 milligrams of DHA when our brain only requires 2 or 3, maybe 4 tops to be sufficient? Okay, so where they got this idea was they were looking at ALA, which is the essential fatty acid that is the only essential omega-3, is ALA, and is found in plants. Actually, animals don't make it, can't make it. Only plants can. Algae don't even make it. All right, well, some actually do. I take that back. But the typical algae oil that's on the market is EPA or DHA or just DHA. All right, so they looked at the conversion of ALA to DHA in the blood, and they found it was only about 1%, or maybe slightly less than 1%. They said, oh my God, that's not enough, right? What they didn't know was that that's not where the conversion of ALA happens. It happens in the liver. Why in the liver, and why so much in the liver? Actually, about 30 to 47 times more ALA is converted in the liver than in the blood. All right, why is it converted in the liver? Our brain has a blood-brain barrier, and the only way you can get that DHA into the brain successfully is to attach the DHA to a thing called LPC, lysophosphatidyl-choline, and that happens in the liver. So our body knows that and says, wait a minute, I'll take the ALA right to the liver, convert it to LPC DHA so it can be taken up by the brain. That's the proper way to convert it. Now, the amount that is shown to be converted in the liver is 30 times more than we even need for our brain. So there is no issue with DHA. We know this from the studies. We've traced this and found it to be true. But people are still holding on to the old blood data. The guy who invented the blood testing method called the omega-3 index, his name is Dr. Bill Harris. He even came out publicly and said, this is not an appropriate test for ALA. It's not, because it only measures EPA and DHA in the blood. And this is where this assumption went wrong, and why we now know a plant-based diet does not require supplementation. There is, however, this one little asterisk. About 25 to 30% of the human population has a genetic variation called ApoE4 or FADS2. Okay, this genetic variation, the very first enzyme that converts ALA down to SDA, that first step, it's called the rate limiting step, because if you don't do that step well, the rest of it doesn't work. So you just need to get that one step done. Those people with that genetic variation don't do that one step very well. Now, there's 2 ways you can help that situation, is either eat a lot more ALA in your diet and make sure you're doing that on a consistent basis, or use a source, a plant source that has higher of that SDA, because then you're bypassing that step. So I went out and found the richest source of SDA of any plant on the planet, and now you can take it and be sure that you're getting appropriate conversion without having to constantly pile in a bunch of ALA source like flax or chia. Flax and chia don't have any SDA at all. Hemp has some, so if you want to do it from whole food source, hemp is the best food source for SDA.
But flax and chia would still be good for people that don't have that genetic.
Right, but there's about 30% of the population that do.
How does somebody know that? Is there a test for that?
There is. It's expensive. It's a genetic test, so most people aren't going to spend the money.
When you say expensive, how much are we talking?
I don't know what it is currently, but it was a couple $100 at least just to get the test. I think up to thousands of dollars.
Well, why the difference between a couple $100 and thousands?
It depends on how the test is done and for its accuracy.
So the more money you spend, the more accurate it's going to be?
I don't want to put that out there. I'll let people talk about it. Talk with your doctor about the test, and because there may be better science is constantly improving, and I think this is one area we need to prove on, which is finding a better test. They're working now on a saliva test, which would be non-intrusive. You wouldn't have to do that, and you can find out if it's...
Well, how's a regular test done through the blood?
I don't recall, and I don't want to misspeak.
Okay.
But you can just type in ApoE4 or FADS2, FADS2. That's the genetic marker for that enzyme and how well you produce it.
Okay, so if you don't produce it well, then besides the product you have, which is the ahi flour, right?
Correct.
Besides that, is there any other way? Like, what's the next best food to get it?
Yeah, so hemp has whole hemp, so you can get it from a whole food state. Just make sure it's cracked. So
you're not talking about the hemp seeds that you buy at the store?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, hemp seeds. That actually has more SDA than, has SDA in it, where flax and chia have no SDA in it at all.
So how much would somebody need to eat every day to get enough, just in case they had this disorder?
So the science isn't really 100% confirmed on those amounts. I think it's better to err on a little bit more than not enough, because not enough is not a good thing.
Are we talking teaspoons a day or cups a day?
I think it's probably a couple, maybe 2 to 3 teaspoons a day is probably sufficient.
Okay. And then let's talk a little about the supplement, the ahi flour. So how do you take that? Is it a capsule? Is it a powder? And do you just mix it in food or sprinkle it on a salad?
Yeah, it's a soft gel, so you can take it that way, or you can pop open the soft gels if you don't want to do the soft gel itself and just do the oil, and you can use it in anything, mix it into food.
You don't have an oil that you could pour?
No, because pourable oil oxidizes. You don't want the oil to oxidize, because then it starts to degrade and it can be a free radical causing.
And the algae oil that's typically taken by the average vegan to get this, has any of the SDA at all?
No, it's pure DHA. Now, here's where I don't like DHA. DHA is, when it goes into membranes, it causes more fluidity. So for some membranes, like the brain, that's a good thing. That's why there's so much DHA in our brain, to allow fluid transfer into the brain tissues. You don't want that in heart cells, because if you allow too much fluid in the heart cell, the heart doesn't send a signal and can cause atrial fibrillation, which is an irregular heartbeat. So if you put DHA biooral into that, it's going to go into the bloodstream and directly affect the heart. They've shown the higher amounts of DHA that you take, the higher the risk, up to 69% risk for AFib. And some people say, well, a regular heart, that doesn't seem like such a big deal. An irregular heartbeat and AFib will put you at a 63% greater risk for having a heart attack. So it's a big deal. Not only that, because the blood is flowing at an irregular pace, it damages cells, tiny blood vessels in the brain, and lead to a 220% increase in the risk of dementia. So adding DHA to the bloodstream is not a good thing. DHA also increases LDL cholesterol. That's not something most people want to do.
So now, getting away from the vegan diet, going to fish oil, let's say, does that have SDA?
No. So ALA, SDA comes almost entirely from the plant kingdom. EPA and the DHA is what the fish have. So carnivore animals actually only require EPA and DHA. All herbivores convert ALA down. We're herbivores. That's one way we can tell we're herbivores, is because we do have that system. Carnivores don't even have that. They can't convert ALA, period. So that's clearly how you can tell physiologically a carnivore from an herbivore, is one can convert ALA, the other cannot.
Besides the ahi flour and the hemp seeds, what are some other sources of the SDA?
So an unknown source, but everybody focuses on like walnuts and seeds and stuff like that. But dark greens are loaded with ALA too, and we just don't even think of dark greens in that way.
SDA?
Not SDA. SDA is in the seed family mostly.
Okay, so besides the ahi flour and the hemp seeds, where else has SDA?
There are a few odd ones that most people have never heard of, like echium. It's another seed, but
what's a common food?
There's
only those two you're saying?
Yeah, unfortunately, that I know of.
And the shelled hemp seeds that we get in the store, they have them?
Yep.
Okay.
But ahi flour has about 8 to 10 times more SDA than hemp seed. So you can use a lower amount and get the effect. And I get it. Some people don't want to do a supplement. That's fine.
The suggested amount on your supplement, is that
3 capsules, so it'll
for everyone, or does it depend on person's body weight or size?
That will cover the bases for almost everyone.
Now, doesn't it seem somebody who weighs more and is bigger would need a different amount than somebody who is smaller?
Okay, so if you're carrying a lot of body fat, it is a fat-soluble nutrient. Obviously, it is a fat, and the body will store it. This is one of the other things that we found in the research, that the body will store up to 50,000 milligrams of DHA in an adult human being. So even this high rate of conversion, when I looked at this data and I said, wow, we're 25, 30 times the amount of the DHA, where's it going? So when they did, it's called a radioisotope tracer, you can tell where your molecule is going in the body. They found up to 60% of the DHA was just...
I get you that people take too much, but the SDA you're talking about.
Okay.
If everyone's going to take 3 a day, I mean, why would... is the person that just is smaller getting more reserves, or is...
Yes.
Okay.
So you're basically doing 2 things. Immediate body needs, which is small, remember, only about 2 to 4 milligrams.
They catch up quickly once they start taking
Exactly.
it.
So then the body will store in fat tissues
reserve,
and then hold it until you really need it, in case, because obviously there's fluctuations in our diet. And then thirdly, it'll burn it as energy.
Can ahi flour, is it gotten anywhere else other than the supplement to oil? Can you eat the flour? Can you grow the flour and eat it?
It was originally called stone seed because the seed is like a rock. Well, this allowed it to adapt because nothing was eating it. And that's why it's such an oddball in the plant kingdom, that it adapted so efficiently to become the highest and richest source of SDA. But we now have machinery that can break open that seed and we can get the oil. So it's one of nature's best kept secrets.
Okay, so what's the casing for the oil? What's that, the vegetable capsule made of?
It's made of seaweed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So seaweeds in general look good, but is that...
Yeah, and it's just a way to keep the oxidation down. So it's antioxidants, rosemary, are put in there to make sure the oil doesn't oxidize, and then is sealed in the capsule to prevent oxidation. The thing is, you don't want oils exposed to air.
Sure, but the capsules itself, you say some people might want to cut it open and might not want the capsules, right?
Correct.
So why wouldn't somebody want the capsule? Is there any negativity from the capsule?
No. And people have read things online, and some people just don't want it in their... I get it. So I wouldn't sell anything that would harm somebody. That's antithesis to what I'm trying to accomplish.
Sure. Well, so much great information. And if you want more, I'm going to put Jeff's email, his website and his contact information below in the description. So much more information to cover, but this is just great, and my favorite topics of just fitness and overall longevity. So thank you so much for joining us. And then, do you want to say before we close?
Oh, thank you for having me. It's great to finally see the farm. I've been a big mango lover all my life, so it's the food of the gods for me. Yes. So I'm looking forward to trying some with you. And and just know that nature's got a lot of the answers, and we're just now figuring out some of them. So I'm trying to do my best to find the best that nature has to offer and bring it to the market in a way that more people can incorporate into the lifestyle, because it's not in the grocery stores, some of the nutrition that is exceptional out there. So I want to give more people the opportunity to get the gifts of nature. Wonderful. All right, everybody, thank you for watching. Put your comments and questions below. And until then, everybody, have a great day and a great world life. Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show.